What's happening there, everybody? Brandon here, coming to you on the channel. So it's getting to be that holiday season again here for us right now. I'm not sure when you're watching this video, but got our fall decor going on back here in the house. And so this time of year I start cranking out some more holiday seasonal type paintings, some stuff that I do maybe as Christmas gifts, or we take them to these fall festival type shows. This particular video is on my small little Christmas tree paintings here. These are quick, easy to do. You can crank these out in less than 20 minutes once you kind of figure out what you're doing with them. So we've got a full real-time video of creating this. Let's have a look at that now. Alright, so what I have here is a flat panel. This is a 5x7. Now you can put these on whatever you want, but don't go too crazy in size here because you want to be able to do this rather quickly. I'm doing this with a wash brush. This is just a 1/2-inch wash brush that I've been using for a long time, so it's a little bit worn out. And I'm just going to create a background here to start with, and I'm just trying to keep it in that, you know, Christmas winter theme. So I'm going with kind of a green, maybe a lighter green because my tree's going to be a dark green. And then I'm going to layer in it with some whites and some grays to just kind of give it a snowy Christmas kind of feel. So I'm just going to start with a touch of green and some white here to kind of make it a lighter pale green. I'm going to add a little bit of water here in my brush just so this stuff will move around better. I'm using acrylics here, so if you are going to use oil paints, this will work probably a lot easier for you in terms of moving this paint around. I'm using acrylics. I like the fact that they do dry quicker when I'm doing my detail work. But for this purpose here, I am trying to blend and fade as best I can, so I have to work a little faster here with these acrylics. And this is going to be a multiple layer thing here, so I'm just putting paint on the canvas here, keeping most of my brush strokes just up and down here. The main thing here is to avoid any sharp edges, so try to blend everything in and smear things in as best you can so you don't have a lot of sharp edges. So I'm touching into, you know, a little bit of white here, and then I'm going to add some black into it to gray it out, and then create multiple passes here of fading these things together, again getting rid of any sharp edges. So blend, smear, fade, whatever you want to call this, because you ultimately are just trying to create a background here that looks like it's kind of out of focus, and then your Christmas tree will pop when you put it in place here in the middle, because everything will have much sharper edges obviously, and will have deeper darker tones to it, so it'll jump off of the canvas a little better when we keep things kind of light and airy in the background here. So that's all I'm doing here, smearing, fading, blending, light green, some white, some black, some gray, putting this color in on this canvas panel and blending it in as best I can. And again, I'm using a 5x7 panel here. If you go much bigger than, say, a 6 or 10-inch size canvas, it just means you're going to have to take a little bit more time because you're going to have to use more paint, you're going to have to cover more ground. Anything this size or smaller, you can do these paintings pretty quickly. Once you're pretty happy with your background, and I'm not too concerned about the middle layer because obviously there's going to be a tree on top of it, but once you're pretty happy with this background, you can move into the tree itself. So I'm going to get in a lot of black here and then a touch of green, create a real dark green to put my tree in place. And I'm going to use the same wash brush here now, and I'm just defining out kind of where my tree is going to be here in the middle of this canvas to give me an idea of where I'm going. And then I use this wash brush a lot here for this technique. I just turn it and I just kind of tap and smash the bristles here down and create my basic form. And here's another thing where I'm going to do multiple layers, so you don't have to be too concerned about, does this first pass look exactly the way I want, is it the right color. it's easier to go darker over lighter, so if you err on the side of anything, go too light to begin with, you can always darken it up. Towards the top here, I'm defining out the branches, just a little bit more space there, but again, this is going to be multiple layer passes to shape out this tree. So this first set of color going on, you don't have to be too concerned about really anything other than just getting color on the canvas. And obviously the Christmas tree is wider here at the base than it is up top, so I'm punching in some more color down here just to cover up some space. And you can see where I've tapped that in. That's a little lighter green than I was at, but again, not worried about that right now. I'm going to come back in here and really start to define out individual branches in the shape of the tree and get the color right as I move separate layers here. So starting back towards the top here, I'm tapping in a little bit thicker limbs coming out, and then just broaden them as I work my way down the tree. And again, I'm going to do multiple passes through all this, so I don't even worry about on this particular pass if I've got my tree looking exactly the way I want. I'm just tapping in some individual branches of where they're going to be headed. Getting color on the canvas here. Now I'm going to darken this area up a little bit here where I was a little bit too light. So I've just darkened my tones up here, and I can start to really shape out my tree. And ultimately it's going to be the snow highlights that we put on that really shape out the branches anyway. So at this point, you just want a good overall shape. And you know, you can make your trees a little fuller, a little fatter, a little skinnier. I usually paint a variety of these each year anyway, so none of them look the same. And you can use different colors for ornaments and things too. I'm going to be doing red here on this one today, but you can use whatever color you want. I've done blues and like college themed teams, so you know, college color ornaments sometimes work good for if you're in an area that people like to, you know, buy stuff, I should say, that supports their teams. You can always go that route or whatever you want to do. But this is going to be maybe my last pass here of filling out these limbs. So just going in here with this darker green color and finishing out the fullness that I want in here, drawing out some of these limbs as I go down just a little bit wider to get more stuff on the canvas. And again, I'm just tapping this brush to create this shape. You can do this a variety of ways too. I just find that this is a flat ended kind of wash brush that I have here, and when I just tap using the end of it, it creates a pretty good furry looking tree limb here. So it's just what I've always used, but you can do the same thing with like a fan brush or anything else that you can use the edge of. I need to get color down here towards the bottom, and then I will be done with my greens here. So I'm going to move here into the snow highlight. I'm going to use the same wash brush here that I've got, and I'm just going to start with what is a snow kind of shadow color. So you're going to need some white, and then I'm going to put in a tiny touch of black in it to gray it up, and then a tiny touch of blue in it. So we're going to create a snow shadow color here to start with. You know, well, what we're going to do now is really start to define where some of these limbs are. So you're going to be putting snow on the top of the ones that are poking out to the right and the left for sure, but then there's also limbs kind of in the middle of this tree that are coming towards us as the viewer that we're going to just kind of define out with this color as well. So again, I'm using the same brush that I just put these limbs in with. I haven't changed anything. And I'm going to put in this snow shadow color here on the tops of these branches where snow would be sitting if it had just recently fallen onto this tree. So all of these that are poking out to the edges, of course, you're going to get some snow on. And then, you know, in the middle of this tree here, there's going to be branches that are coming out towards us that you just want to kind of touch a little shape in there to say, hey, there's a limb that's poking out towards us. And then we're going to come back on the tips of these things with a little brighter white highlight to where our brightest light reflection is hitting them. And then you should just make some decisions of where you think your limbs live in there, in that interior dark part of your tree. And again, this is our shadow snow color here. We're just kind of tapping it in there, and then we're going to go back now with almost just pure titanium white as a final little highlight touch. There. Again, no rhyme or reason to where I'm going here, just tapping these in. And now with a brighter white highlight, I will come back in here and out on the edges, the furthest outmost edges of these tips, touch in some bright white right along the top edge. Again, leaving a lot of that shadow color still there, so just very along the tops and to the outermost part of where we think that limb is. So the shadow color will remain as it's deeper into the tree, but out here on these outer edges, we're going to get a little bit of brighter highlight on the top of this snow. And just try to touch each individual place that you've put that shadow color in with one little tap of highlight on the top edge of it, or out on the, what would be the tip, I guess, of the limb on these that are kind of facing out towards us. And just go back when you think you're done with this and give it a good look and make sure you have hit at least one little tap of highlight on the tip of every little place you've put that shadowed snow color in. And again, especially on these limbs that are kind of facing out towards us, make sure that you leave a lot of that shadowed color exposed towards the deep end, because that gives you your three-dimensionality. As those limbs are tucked further into the tree, they're still going to be shaded. And then I'm going to go into a smaller brush. I'm just going to use a small round brush here to start dropping in some ornaments. Anything small that you can work with will do here, and I'm using a dark red, so just a touch of some brown or some raw umber into a red to darken your red up, and then just freehand in here some circle ornaments is what I'm doing. So just trying to create as best of a circle as I can. And again, I've just darkened up some red here with a little bit of raw umber and putting in these things where I want. And then we're going to come back with some highlight passes to make these things look like metallic, kind of shiny ornaments. And we'll do the same thing with a bow on the top. And so again, if you're going to use a different color, if you're going to put some blue ornaments in here, or whatever color you're using, just start with a darker tone of that color, darken it down a little bit with either a touch of brown or black or something to darken it down. Put that color in first here, so here's our dark red circles going in, and then going to do the same thing with a bow on the top of the tree, and then we'll come back with highlight touches to finish the look. And for the bow here, I usually do a couple of little loops that just look like you're looking at it maybe from the side, where you can kind of see through the loop of the bow itself, and then just blob in some color that you can put some highlight on top of towards the front end, and then a couple of ribbons from the bow coming down the tree itself. And you can carry these ribbons coming down as far as you want. I usually just come down a little ways as to not overlap them over my ornaments that I've already put in here. So you're just going to carry a little bit of this color down in here as to make two ribbons coming down a little ways. And this is the same darker red that I just put in these ornaments with. And then all we're going to do is create a couple of highlight passes here. Start back with the ornaments. So I'm going to go back into almost just a straight up medium red value now on top of that dark, to try to create the illusion that we have indeed a round metallic shiny ornament here. So you really just want to make sure you leave your edges of these round ornaments dark, so it creates the illusion that it is a circular thing. Add a couple more hoops here on my bow. to make it look a little fuller. But you want to make sure you leave the edges of your round ornaments dark. That way it creates that spherical look here. So when you come in with your highlights, you want to start towards the center of your ornaments and keep your brightest stuff kind of in the middle. And then we'll put a couple of little final touches of sparkle highlight on them as the last piece. So I'm going to come right in the middle now of these ornaments and brighten it up. And I'm kind of tapping this round brush in here. I'm not, I don't necessarily need full coverage of this color, but I'm kind of keeping it in the center and just kind of tapping it and touching this brighter red down the middle of each ornament, leaving again the perimeter of this still dark. Don't cover up all the dark for sure. And you can look at an ornament on a tree and see where its highlights are, and it's going to vary depending on, like, if you've got lights on the tree that are reflecting off of it, or in this case we've got snow on this that could be reflecting off of these metallic ornaments, and we'll kind of give a hint of that here in a minute. But for right now, it is come in the middle of each one and lighten it up just a touch with your medium color value of whatever you're using. And we start to give the illusion that these things are a spherical object by doing this. Same thing on our bow here. The tops of all of this ribbon and anything that's kind of outward facing, catching any highlight, I'm going to lighten it up with the same, just kind of medium red value now. And then ultimately we will put in a touch of white in here to really lighten up this last pass. So here now with a little bit of white in the mix, I'm really just kind of tapping. You definitely don't want full coverage or even a full looking brush stroke, I should say, on this. You just want tiny little, almost like a cluster of dots right in the middle of each one of these things. And you can think about, okay, where's the closest snow that might be reflecting off of this? Which direction is it coming from? Tap in just a couple of little dots from that direction. And then the tips and the edges of your bow, the same thing. Just kind of places where the bow would curl or curve. And on these outer edges, maybe there's a little frosty action going on here. Bring that in to separate it. And on the bow itself, again, leave a lot of that dark kind of in the middle. That way it looks like a three-dimensional bow sitting up there. And you're just kind of hitting the edges with this brighter pass. And you could spend as much time as you want on these last little highlights kind of perfecting it, but for me it's just tap in a couple of tiny little bright white spots from the direction that the closest snow that I feel would be bouncing off of these ornaments. And that's really about all I'm going to do and call this project done. So you see this is a pretty simple, quick, again, less than 20 minutes. Once you kind of get a hang on what you're doing here, you can crank these things out pretty easy if you want to make multiple for whatever occasion. But there is our finished product here. So again, this is on a 5x7 panel. Quick Christmas tree with some snow on the limbs and some ornaments. Hope you guys had fun painting along with this one. Until next time, happy painting, everybody.